Hi, I'm Louise Selby and I work as a dyslexia specialist. But in December, I was hit with a severe eye infection, which has prevented me from working and which has left me visually impaired for a temporary period. I had a corneal ulcer and a severe infection of the eye, which lasted for several months. In fact, I spent much of December lying in a darkened room. So why am I telling you about this? Well, in my time lying in a darkened room, in pain, not able to see, I've really done a lot of thinking about the people who I work with and the people who I work for. And I want to speak to you from the heart today about my thoughts about what those people who I work for, what they experience, and how I have been empathizing with them. Reading. I still struggle to read texts. I can now manage, but I can't read full texts at the moment. And I've had to rely on assistive technology. I've been using text to speech, and those of you that are Mac users might know good old Daniel. I'm not keen. I much prefer Kate, but you listen to someone reading out to you, and even if you can understand what they're saying, you have no control. I can't skim and scan. I can't jump to different pieces of the text like I would when I was normally reading. It is such a disadvantage. Assistive technology is fantastic, don't get me wrong. There is so much out there to help people, but it's not the same as reading, and it's just made me all the more determined to enable people with difficulties, people with dyslexia, to learn to read and write. The eyes are the window to the soul. It's certainly true for me. But if that's the case, reading is a door to the world, and being visually impaired has really made me think about this. At that time, the ulcer was so poorly, so bad that I couldn't open either eye because it was just so painful. And I felt shut off from the world, lying in my darkened room in pain. I was treated by my local hospital for a couple of weeks with regular treatment for a corneal infection and ulcer, but I was getting worse. And in the end, I went and I begged for a referral to a specialist hospital, and I was referred to Moorfields. When I went to Moorfields, I met the corneal fellow there and some very experienced specialist doctors, and it was like going to an oasis. And again, it's made me think a lot about how we work with, how we support children with dyslexia, children with reading and writing difficulties, because it wasn't until I got to the specialist hospital that I had a test. They took a corneal scrape. That's when they actually take the pus out of your eye and send it to the lab and test it. And they found soon enough the reason that I hadn't got better was because I had been treated for the wrong kind of infection. I was soon given the right medication, and it's a slow road to recovery, but I'm on the way, because it's so easy for us to think that a child has a difficulty and just throw an intervention at them. But how often do we assess them? How often do we use specialist knowledge to work out exactly what's going on for that child? When I went to Moorfields, the doctors and the nurses and all the staff were superb. There was so much understanding. of what it's like to go into a hospital not able to see and in extreme pain. The empathy that I received was phenomenal, and I really hope that I'm able to show that empathy for the children who I work with. One thing that stood out for me was how my doctor acknowledged the level of pain that I was in. He knew, because he knows corneas. And I wonder how much, when I work with children, how much I'm so busy trying to encourage them and boost them and let them see their strengths, how much do I acknowledge just how challenging I know it is for them, how tricky life is, reading is, writing is, and just acknowledge that that difficulty is there. And it's blooming hard. It's blooming hard when we hear often that dyslexia is a gift, and there are definite positives that we've seen in famous dyslexics who have overcome their difficulties. Often we find dyslexics who are very creative, who use a different side of the brain and can look at the world holistically and see things in a whole picture. However, what we don't hear about as often is just how hard it is. How hard it is when you have to use assistive technology. You have to listen to Daniel or Kate or Serena talking to you. You don't have control over the text that you read. You have to choose what you read based on what you think you can read. The world isn't your oyster when you can't read, when you struggle. It's really, really hard. And although I've learned a great deal through my own experience, and hopefully I've come back more determined than ever to support children, it's also just been blooming hard, and I really want to get better. And I know that I will, because I'm in the best hands. But one thing for sure is I am more determined than ever to enable children in schools to learn to read and write, and to enable staff to have the skills so that they can support them. Reading difficulties can be helped in the classroom at grassroots level, and I'm more determined than ever. Everyone has to learn to read and write. It's a human right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye for now.